Hey, super grateful that you're here for this one. This is an interesting one. How many wealth managers or financial advisors that you know about that solely focus on medical sales reps? This was a first to me. So I'm really excited for you to sit down and check out this interview with Fletcher Bolda. I really think that he has found a fantastic niche. I mean, obviously, a pat on the back for me for being a part of an industry or a profession that requires its own wealth manager. That feels nice. But in reality, he really does understand what we're going through because he's taken the time to educate himself and surround himself with individuals who are working around the clock, who have been putting in time and effort. And he understands, the approach that we take, and we have to sell quarterly and we get paid on commission and with base salaries, and we have all these different benefits on the back end, and he really knows how to apply that. And I've had a lot of discussions after this interview, before and after, that really show me that he's fully understanding what we are and what we go through. So this is a really great opportunity for you to get inside the mind of someone who has walked into our space, into the medical sales space, and truly understands and wants to help in a way that not a lot of people are. I know that I had to learn the hard way of how to manage funds in the way that we are paid, in the way that we live, and just the way the industry works. And he's been able to sort that out with his understanding of financials. So I'm really excited for you to sit down and check out this interview with Fletcher Bolda. I must say he's a real cool guy. He's a former hockey player and a goalie, where I really appreciate that. I'm a catcher from baseball. He's a goalie. There's some similarities there. And also the fact that he's taken the time to give me some free advice in order to really understand how to maximize on your finances if you're in medical sales or in an industry that's similarly paid, right? So I recommend you check this out and check him out. Lean on Fletcher to get you some answers on how to manage your finances and maximize it. So enjoy this episode here with Fletcher Bolda.
Even a lot of these people that are, whether they're career changers or they're trying to get into the field for the first time, I don't even think they really understand what the opportunity is, that's ahead for them, right? Like, I don't even think they know that, what you can get on the back end of this career if you do things the right way. So I think you're a great resource for them, even if it's just kind of to discuss what, the what could be,
Yes. It's funny you say that. So the first content that I started filming was content about what is medical sales, what's it all about? And I went into the expectations of it, the vastness of it, the pay that you get, the feeling that you get, the benefits after being involved for a few years, trying to answer a lot of the FAQs when you don't know much, but you heard that this is an interesting thing, or people hear I can get paid well, or I can, like, one or two things that piques their interest, but that's all they know. And what I haven't done is I haven't posted in my community yet. And my last few calls have been with individuals who could really benefit from it. So I'm going to end up reposting those because it's not all about, hey, let's get started. It's, do you want to get started? So I'm going to offer that for free to make sure people understand what they want to get into and make the right decision. Like the last person I told you, it's like it's either nursing or medical sales. And he's got two really good points of whether or not he should follow those paths. So let me give him the information because this is life-changing for him, right? And that's, I think, deep down inside, that's why I enjoy it. Is like, I got lucky enough to find someone who set me down a path that's better than any other one I had in front of me. So let me give people the information that they don't have so that they can make the best decision possible, so that they can move forward in their lives. I'll make that. I got to make that available in my community at no cost. And
I think that's amazing. And I think in kind of posting some of that material and like questions that people have, I mean, there's certainly a peanut gallery that are wondering questions but are maybe a little bit too afraid to ask, right? That information is super important. And again, I'm not sure if this is going to be something you're going to clip and use or not, but like for those people out there that are seeing that, like take a leap, ask a question. Like if they end up kind of getting into this career, like it's all about kind of taking risks and putting yourself out there and selling yourself as a human being. So again, don't suffer in silence if you have questions about the career or what it takes to be successful. Like put yourself out there and make an introduction and see where it takes you from there.
It's so true. And I can tell who's going to be a good candidate as to whether or not they're, well, just by the questions that they ask. The questions that you ask dictate a lot because your questions tell where your head's at. A bad example or basic example is, how much vacation time do you get, right? That's like the number one turn off if you were to ask something like that, because you're projecting where your head's really at. So if you're asking a lot of financial questions about pay, that's where your head's at. If you're asking a lot about clinical and your involvement with the surgeon or travel, because of what? Well, because I have kids at home, right? Like everyone is asking questions based on something, and it's okay to ask. Like look out for yourself. Another example that I give to candidates is, and this is probably getting old because I'm old now, I guess, but when LeBron James went over to the Miami Heat, he was like, I'm taking my talents to South Beach, which is such a strange way to say, I'm now going to be playing for the Miami Heat. But you can tell by the way he views himself, by the way he worded it, right? I'm of value and I'm choosing to go there. So keep that in mind when interviewing. It's not like, please, may I have a job and I'm happy to answer your questions. It's like, I'd love to work for your organization, I think, but I also value myself. So I have some questions that I'd like to ask so that I can make sure I'm making the right decision for myself because I have talents as well before I take my talents to South Beach.
Yeah. And you can probably tell this similar to myself. Like when you meet with somebody, you know right away within the first couple minutes if they kind of have the right makeup and the right DNA to be successful in the career. And I see it when I talk to folks, and again, I'm on the financial planning side, and folks that I talk with know that I work with people up and down the totem pole, from associates starting out to President's Club level producers. And even in those conversations, you can tell the people who want an edge because they'll say, like, what characteristics do you pick up on from these folks that are high performers? And what kind of moves are these people making? It's the same thing when you get into an interview. It's like, what are some characteristics you have from your highest performing reps and people that turn this into a very fulfilling career? Those are the questions that high performers ask, at least from what I've seen.
That's really well said. Similar to what I would say is like a baseball swing. Everyone has a different batting stance, but if you were to freeze the swing at certain points, everybody is doing the same things at certain points of the swing, whether it's when you're loading and you're making contact. There are certain things that you need to have or you need to be doing to get done right, or at least a good portion of them. And Stryker, when I worked there, they have a personality test. A lot of major companies have their employees take these personality exams to better understand themselves, so that the better you know yourself, the better you can be. But what they do is on the interview process, they interview candidates, and if you get to a certain point, they then have you take this personality exam. And if you get to that point, that's great because they're spending money on you. It costs them money to do that. And it's all based, you don't get the score, but they're keeping score. And the questions are all based off of their interviews with the top reps of that role that you're going for. So there's consistencies from the people that have been most successful in this role. Do you match up with a lot of those consistencies effectively is the question. So it makes complete sense if you're running a multi-billion-dollar organization to spend money on that to make sure that hey, these guys have been really successful. Let's see if you can. And there's really no tricks to getting around that. And you don't want to get around that either. It's be yourself, because if you don't match up, then you don't want to be in a position where you're not going to be successful. I've seen people who are like really excited and they're dreaming about this role that they want to get into, and the test comes back and they haven't really scored well, and they're like disappointed. And of course, they're likely a competitive person, and I respect that. No one likes losing, but you've actually just found out ahead of time that this is likely something that you weren't going to find success in, or it wasn't going to match you. Do have a question for you, and let's just start from the beginning. Help me and anyone who's listening, help us understand what it is that you do and how you got to do what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I had a financial planning practice out of Stamford, Connecticut. So it's just north from New York City if you're heading up I-95. And I was kind of similar to yourself, like a very competitive person my whole life. And I knew that I didn't necessarily, want to work for somebody. I wanted to have autonomy. And if I got in a position where, I was performing higher than, at a higher level than the person next to me, I wanted to be compensated accordingly. But I also wanted to have an impact, right? I think that's a big thing to talk about is like, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? And I found that this career, not all dissimilar to med device, you can have a tremendous impact and you can kind of control your own fate. And I like that. I've always been the kind of person to gamble on myself. So that brought me into the world of financial planning and trying to help individuals make sound financial decisions and again take a step towards what they're hoping their financial picture is going to look like in the future. And that's what I do on a daily basis.
I love that. It makes complete sense. I spoke to a few people about this and they had never heard of it before. Someone that's working along with medical sales reps. From my perspective, medical sales reps make enough for someone like you to go, all right, I'm going to go after this cohort of individuals and specialize in them. Their income is enough for you to make sense for you. Also, the way that we get paid varies. It fluctuates a lot of the time. The more you're making as a medical sales rep, the higher the variability in pay, most likely. So commission coming and going. When I sold the orthopedic robot, it was the most expensive thing I sold, and it was the most I've ever made in medical sales. But I would go months without selling one. It was just the life cycle of the product, or the sales cycle of the product. So with that in mind, a medical sales rep doesn't have to be trained in, financial acumen. A number of the guys on the team, they're like, yeah, my spouse handles the finances at home. So to me, it makes complete sense to have someone that's like, hey, I completely understand your industry. I have tons of clients like you. Let me help you out. What have you found? What have you discovered since you've been doing this and working with medical sales reps?
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like you go, depending on the position and your tenure, within the industry, like compensation can vary. It can certainly be different for an associate that's starting out. Maybe they are W-2 based and they're on kind of a set schedule, and quota metrics aren't too significant for them. But as you get into being a high performer, maybe you're 4 or 5 years in, and you're working kind of off of a 1099 or off of a commission schedule, it gets a little bit more complex. And I would say one thing that I have found within the industry, a lot of people will say like, hey, I specialize in working with this demographic. And it's kind of rinse and repeat, making the same decisions. It's kind of like a template in planning. Med device is not that way, right? So you talk about people that work on the independent contracting side, maybe they're 1099 independent, versus someone who works underneath, kind of a large scale med tech company. It can be completely different, right? And you work in kind of fluctuations. Like we talk about right now, this is, I don't know when this is going to come out, but we're talking kind of in the kickoff of Q4 and quota season, and it's super chaotic for folks. They're working towards that metric that they know that kind of last commission check is going to look like in bonus for the year. Planning for that is completely different than planning you do throughout the year, right? Yeah. And trying to say, hey, this is how you plan for individuals in these decisions and these situations, while also trying to be very particular to, what are they trying to accomplish? What are their own, personal financial goals, completely disassociated from med device? Because at the end of the day, like that's what's most important, right? Set aside what, quote unquote standard financial planning is for your industry. If it's not going to serve what you're hoping to fulfill as an individual and as a family, it's not really worth anything. So right. Med device is an extremely intriguing market for a guy like myself because I love the type of people. They're competitive, they're go-getters, and it takes a significant level of strategy to plan for them effectively. Because again, they have some pretty cool tools made available to them, but not a lot of folks know exactly how to work with them and make the most of those tools. So it's a fun environment.
Right. I imagine a lot of people that are making the amount of money that a medical sales rep can make or more are business people who might be in a space where financial acumen is valued higher, or you need to have more financial acumen. Not saying that medical sales reps don't, because we're dealing with collecting payments all the time and selling to hospital executives or people in doctors' practices who are making budgetary decisions. So it's not foreign to us. But at the same time, we specialize in highly technical products that are about the human body, typically, or the hospital. So not just that, but it also leaves us in a situation a lot of the times where we tend to be overwhelmed, very overwhelmed. Any medical sales rep will tell you that, I'm sure. And to have someone to lean on that specifically understands what we're going through, not just the financial side, but the way in which we live and being mindful of our day to day to be able to work with us or communicate with us. See, I started in medical sales in 2011, and looking back, that was the age of like audiobooks, and you can actually go to YouTube and some random people are posting things about where to learn. And so that's where I learned about my financial action, where should start, how I should start saving, and where I should be putting my money and stocks and things like that. That didn't really learn much of that in school, no matter how many years I spent in school. But it would have been really nice to feel like I had access to someone who was a financial planner. And on top of that, the idea of having a financial planner was so far removed. I'm like, I'm not a guy who needs that. But to know your evidence of the fact that medical sales reps can benefit from that. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, and not to take away from any of the information that you learned back when you were in that kind of stage of like trying to do some deep dives and trying to read books and trying to find information. But the problem is I think a lot of financial information and stuff you'll find on TikTok or social media is very cookie cutter, and I'm sure you could probably speak of this too. Like the industry is anything but cookie cutter. Like there's so much fluctuation, there's so much volatility that goes on within the industry. Why do we think your financial plan should be the same? Now, sure, there might be some fundamental pieces, right, that might make sense, but when you pull those levers in a way that's going to, kind of sync up with the goals and objectives that you have, having those conversations with folks in med device is very different than someone who's a standard W-2 that's clocking in, clocking out 9 to 5, just because that's just the structure of the career. Like looking back at you, I mean, how many days were, you waking up at 10 o'clock and getting home at 3? Like that's just not what the career is.
Correct.
So when you talk about, trying to find sound financial information, like you only know what you know, and you're also a victim to the time that you have. Like, I don't know, speaking to yourself and probably majority of the folks that I talk to, they don't have time to come home from the OR and be a full-time financial advisor. They don't. Like their job is a job and a half already. They don't have time to take on another task. And that's where someone like myself can be very, very valuable.
There's a lot of sales reps that base their financial planning around the way a company presents its benefits to you and its pay. So do you want to have your money deposited into this bank, or would you like it in two? What percentage, right? Would you like a percentage of your pay to go towards stock purchase plan? And then what percentage? And there's literally no advice. It's like, pick a number, hurry up, get this over with, and then you're good for the year or whatever. And that's what I did, and I learned the hard way. And I was like, well, let me max this out. And then it's like, halfway through the year, my paycheck completely changes because, I either maxed it out or, I don't want to say horror stories, but I have heard stories of people's pay fluctuating by thousands of dollars because they did not manage it correctly, because we don't know any better.
No, you're right, and it's nobody's fault necessarily. And it's funny you're saying that because we're right in the middle of open enrollment season, so maybe this is a good thing for people to kind of hear. Most companies are going to give you some unbelievable tools, right? They're going to give you a 401k, right? They're going to give you an ESPP, right? An employee stock purchase plan, right? They're going to give you simple insurances. They'll give you health, vision, dental. They'll give you life. They'll give you disability. If you're doing well, they might give you some RSUs, right? Restricted stock units as gifts as a form of compensation. But a lot of people from there are like, well, what do I do with this, right? When I'm selecting my 401k, how much do I want to contribute? Do I want it to be Roth? Do I want it to be traditional? What the hell does that even mean, right? Like that's a conversation I have with people all the time. And the funny thing is, it's not like, hey, you're in this stage of the career, this is the allocation you need to have on these different vehicles. It's like, well, what are some objectives that we have? Do we need the tax break today, or are we better off paying, into a Roth contribution right today, because we know our tax rate's going to be a lot better today than it will be in the future? Those are conversations that you have with people. The same goes when you talk about the employee stock purchase plan or RSUs. Those are awesome tools that are made available. Like an employee stock purchase plan, if they're going to give you, a 10 to 15% discount on your company stock, that's a great thing, right? And in theory, you're already operating at a gain, and it gives you skin in the game. But the problem is, and think about this, like if you had that amount of dollar, are you taking that and just putting it on Stryker stock? Are you taking and putting it on Medtronic stock? What are you doing with it? So where I'm going with that, I mean, if you look at like year-to-date performance on med device stocks versus like the S&P 500, you've got 4 med device companies that are outperforming the S&P 500, right? So it's not to say don't take advantage of an employee stock purchase plan, but the problem I see with a lot of reps is down the line, they have a single equity or a single company that commands a pretty significant portion of their portfolio. And that can be a pretty tough spot to be, right? We talked about that, right?
Yeah.
So what you do with a lot of reps and folks that I have conversations with is as those things vest, how do you properly structure exits from those positions to tie that capital back into your underlying portfolio that you have, so that way you're going to get yourself from point A to point B. Right? Trap I see a lot of people fall into.
100%.
100%.
And here's a fact: a heavy amount of medical sales reps come from a blue collar background. Like their parents were blue collar workers. And this is a major step forward in terms of the progression, in terms of generational progress in their family and their family history. And that was the case for me. I've seen it over and over again with a lot of my colleagues, which it's really rewarding to get paid this much. And then your family, I don't want to say leans on you. Family can be very proud of you, and then you feel like a sense of like I've done it and I've made things possible for my family, and you can now give or you can now host at your getaway home. You see that a lot. At the same time, the medical sales rep who comes from that background, which is a lot of us, is obligated to learn these new things, and a lot of them is financial education that we never had because there was no need for it, right? There was never the opportunity for it. So along with this, great thing that we're doing generationally, there's the bumps and bruises of making certain mistakes or missing out and not taking advantage of some benefits. Guilty of that too. So
yeah,
I imagine you're seeing that with some of your customers or your clients.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, it's every conversation. I mean, what you're alluding to is what's called lifestyle creep. I think everybody has kind of heard that concept. And like you said, I mean, you do have a lot of people that come from blue collar backgrounds or folks that come from athletics where you're competitive. And I think those people tend to have a ton of success, right? There's no doubt about that. And alluding to folks that are maybe from a blue collar background, I have a lot of blue collar principals. I come from a very rural area of northeastern Michigan. It's a very blue collar area. The problem is when you get into financial planning, you have to plan from a white collar perspective because you earn a white collar wage. That's just the nature of it. And lifestyle creep is a real thing. And because you can probably allude to this, like when you work in the career, right, you can start to make pretty good money pretty quickly. But the problem with lifestyle creep is you allow your lifestyle to drift, right, with that increase in pay. Where folks start to develop and create real sustainable wealth is when they're able to prevent that. And that's not to say, hey, listen, I'm not going to take the trip. I'm not going to go have some fun. You work really hard for your wealth. You just need to have checks and balances. And we talk about this a lot with folks that are in the first probably 3 years of the career, is having a set in stone process and plan that knowing regardless of what's going on, I make more money. These are the things that I know I'm going to do. And this is going to be my fun money to go do the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Because again, we're human beings, right? You need to have reprieve, but you need to make sure that it's planned for and accounted for. Does that make sense?
100%. That's really good. It actually brings up a question. Does it ever come up where you're focused on or have conversations with or deal with the fact that the primary earner is the medical sales rep? The way they earn is sporadic. Q4 they push, and then the pay comes in January or February the next year. It's so erratic. Having your spouse understand the financial aspect of when money's coming and when it's not, right? When the sales rep might not even know. Do you find yourself in situations where you're having conversations with the spouse or helping the sales rep just help them be able to educate their spouse in the way that they should be saving, et cetera?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you this, and it's kind of a belief that I have. If I'm engaging in a conversation with somebody who is married, I'd say I have an initial phone call, like kind of 5 to 10 minutes on the phone to get to know somebody, and I understand that they're married. I will not have that next call unless a spouse is included. Because while you may be the primary earner, you might be the breadwinner for the family. I mean, two becomes one when you're married. Whether people plan like that or not, you each need to have an understanding of what is going on. And those are very, very productive conversations to have. Because a lot of times I'm sitting there almost playing therapist to folks that are, they're kind of voicing opinions and things that they've thought about for a while. And those conversations are very, very valuable because both parties need to understand exactly the situation that they're in so that they can goal set and move forward accordingly. So absolutely, it's always having conversations with spouses.
Quick heads up, if you're getting value from this and you want more, check out medsalesblueprint.com. That's my website where I help people get into medical sales. I have tons of resources and tons of content. So whether you want to get in or you want to help someone get in, send them my way. I'm ready to help. You can reach out to me there, or you can also find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Back to the video. Jumping back into it. Yeah, if you were to kind of list out the benefits or the main benefit, right? If you like, I guess, elevator pitch of what you do to a medical sales rep, what does that sound like?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think to answer that, you kind of have to understand what true financial planning is, right? It's not just like picking some hot stocks in the market. To be quite frank, you could find a couple hot stocks going on ChatGPT and finding exactly what that, what a decent asset allocation would be. But the work that we do revolves around four primary pillars of planning. I always say four. The first being the risk-based side of planning. So that's understanding cash flow management, building up emergency funds, proper insurances, like kind of the stuff that really isn't that sexy to talk about, but is extremely important when you put together any true financial plan. Second piece being, how are you accumulating wealth? So what triggers are we pulling and what are we leveraging? Are we touching on benefits that we have at work? Are we leveraging a 401k, employee stock purchase plan? Are there RSUs? Do you have independent IRAs? Do you have a taxable brokerage account? Are you interested in passive income and real estate? And how do you tie all of those things together, right? What are the tax implications behind them? We'll also discussing things like tax strategy, like what brackets are we going to fall into? What portions of our income are going to be taxed in particular ways, right? A bonus for standard commissions that are coming in, what's going to count for this calendar year versus the next calendar year, and then also talking about legacy planning. Like when it's all said and done, what is that going to amount to? I mean, you've got some reps that are starting out that are 23, 24, 25, but you've also got some folks that are on the back end trying to figure out what distribution is going to look like and what it's going to mean for their family. So I think I'm a tremendous value add in tying all of those things together and providing true planning versus just saying, hey, here's a couple pieces, do with it as you will.
Yeah. Yeah. So many of the things that you're saying, I either learned the hard way, researched, or I've heard of from a distance, right? And kind of tried to piece it all together. And I mean, what's more important? The reason that we're going to work is to bring in this money so that we can provide for our families and all these different things. But then not knowing the best way to manage it. Even the tax planning aspect of it that makes total sense. It was years. It took years for me to realize that there's a complete difference between an accountant and a tax planner. I guess I'm being vulnerable and sharing my lack of knowledge of the space. But I mean, that's the idea, that you don't know what you don't know. And then when you're 30, 40 years old and you're learning, hey, I should have been doing this for the last 10, 15 years, my bank account would look completely different if I would have implemented these strategies. Yeah, obviously that's a benefit.
No, I mean, you're spot on. I mean, the basic principle is it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. Right. So like, how do you plan along the way from a tax efficiency perspective? Right. And like, this isn't to, trigger the IRS here, but like, you work extremely hard for your money. It's a very difficult job, right? It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. right? Like Uncle Sam doesn't need to take everything that you earn, right? Now everything is legal by the book, but like how do you plan and leverage the tax code? Because it's put in place for a reason. It's put in place to help the individual,
Yeah.
right? So how do you make use of options that are made available to you, right? And that's another thing. I mean, when you look at effective and really high performing reps, and when you talk about their financial plan, like they have tax diversification. Right? You talk about asset allocation and diversification of assets and the holdings within a portfolio, but they diversify the tax strategies of their vehicles, right? So they've got things that they're paying tax on, whether maybe it's a Roth based vehicle, right? They pay the tax initially, so it's going to be tax free in retirement, right? They've got tax deferred, right? Such as traditional IRAs. And then they've got taxable accounts, like a brokerage account that's going to give them instant liquidity. They know exactly what's going to happen when they go to pull on these accounts and the pros and cons to each, but they have stepping stones along the way, right? They've
Yes.
planned for liquidity within the short term, whether it's within 2 years, within a couple months, or within the next 5 to 10 years. But they also know that these are my accounts that I am not going to touch up until retirement. And then I have their accounts that's like, if I need to, I can pull on these. But they have a strategy behind each and every vehicle that they have in place.
Right. Wow. So yeah, so for me, it's like, let's call a spade here. You're in medical sales long enough and you are successful enough and this is your main gig, right? And you're taking it seriously and you find yourself with enough assets, money in the bank, money in your 401k and all these things that you're actually technically a millionaire in terms of equity or assets, right? Not necessarily flush cash. Maybe some reps are actually. And then you take a step back and it's like, hold on, how do I manage this? When that happens, when you have enough money in the bank so that there's an opportunity to invest in something, I know a lot of sales reps that go to invest in either real estate or some opportunity, and it's happened to me. But there's really no one to go to that's going to sit down with you and go, all right, look, I have money here, 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 and here, and I can pull loan. What's the best route to take if I want to invest in this? First off, what do you think about this investment? Secondly, how do I unlock capital in order to invest? Like, this is the conversation I'd be able to have with you, right? Because you have access and understanding.
Right.
Where were you my last 15 years?
Right, exactly. And it's like a lot of people talk about like if I stash this away, this is what it's going to be at 65. But a lot of people don't talk about the value of having liquidity. Like, what does it mean if you cannot touch it? Like, there are opportunities that you're going to have along the way. How do you plan for liquidity? And when you talk about liquidity, it's not just sitting in my checking account, right? If you talk about the effect of inflation, say inflation averages over, about 3% a year, and you've got a bunch of cash just sitting in a checking account or a savings account, even standard savings account earning, 0.01%, that's taking a haircut. So how can we be strategic with our idle cash and understand these are some opportunities and things I'd like to explore in the short to mid-term? How can I ensure that I'm going to have the option to do it? That's where effective planning comes into place, while also understanding what the tax implications of pulling those levers are, while not disrupting what the bigger picture long-term goal is. That's where truly powerful planning happens, is in those conversations and understanding the wants and the needs of the client in the situation, the med sales rep.
Yeah. You're bringing up things that are insanely important. I've always had an obsession with security and feeling the need that I'm secure for X amount of months or years, and the future is going to be okay for me when I eventually have a family that I'll be able to provide, and there's enough in the bank. But it's never as simple as savings account and investing. You learn along the way, whether it's moving it over into a money market or there's certain benefits that a certain bank has where they're actually giving you 3-4% on your money versus the 0.1%. Having invested in real estate, understanding loans and which loans you might want to pay off sooner, et cetera, puts me in a position where time is money. So you're also sacrificing the time to try and educate yourself and do this. Plus, you're in a situation where you're unknown and you're stressing. So as if medical sales wasn't stressful enough, I'm trying to put my head in a place of where I've been multiple times, where I'm stressing, am I making the right decision here? Am I missing out on opportunities? Um, yeah, sorry, just thinking out loud as to what I've
Yeah.
gone through.
But you're right, and you honestly fall into the majority. Like if you look at med sales reps that are high performers, I don't want this to be a negative thing, but what makes them good oftentimes is their ego, right? Like they're very, very confident. They know their stuff. They know they're going to get in. They know they're charming. They know they're going to get the job done, and they're going to do it at a high level. When it gets into the position of talking about financial planning, a lot for most reps, it's putting their ego to the side and saying, hey, listen, I don't know everything about this. And maybe what my buddy told me last Friday over beers isn't going to be applicable to me, right? So you have to put your pride to the side and say, listen, these are some things that I'm thinking. These are some things I want to accomplish. I have maybe an idea on how I should get there, but can you validate that for me, or can you give me some insight on maybe a better way to do this? And that's what a financial planner is. It's like a personal CFO for you, right? It's not just someone who's picking hot stocks. Now, I always say this, it's like my job is to get you from point A to point B in a way that I can bulletproof and predict, right? My job isn't to try to get you 35% every single year in the market. It's to try to say, hey, listen, what are some things that are really, really important for you? And if we talk over the next 3, 5, 10 plus years in a perfect world for you, what does life look like? And then how can we put together a framework and a roadmap to allow us to get there? And that's what a planner does. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, okay, understanding your current situation. All right, where are you at? What do you have, and what's your family situation? All right, let's revamp and optimize, and then we'll put a plan in place for the coming months and years. And then in those months and years, things come up, whether it's unfortunate situations or opportunities. Um, that's where I've found myself trying to figure things out. Um, I will say this. So I've listened to this book called Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. Not sure if you've heard of it. This book gave me a really interesting understanding of how to look at taxes. I think I'm halfway through it, right? But the most impactful part was the very beginning, where it says your mindset on just tax code and benefiting from it. A lot of people think that that you're taking advantage of the government of your country by avoiding paying taxes. They said, look at it as this. The government is incentivizing you in specific ways. It's saying, hey, if you have a child, you'll get $6,000 back. If you have a business, we will lower your, whatever it may be. These are incentives for you. So look at it as your country has chosen to offer these opportunities to you. Please take advantage of them, because we're trying to inspire growth in this segment of the business.
Correct.
We want more children, right? We want our population to have more kids. So we're going to incentivize or take care of people who are having children. We want more small business owners. So we're now incentivizing small business owners to open up businesses. So take the $50,000 that we're offering, or whatever it may be. So it flips the paradigm to be like, hold on, take full advantage of tax code and benefit from it as best as you can. And it's
100%.
actually a patriotic duty.
Correct.
It's aggressive, but it makes you feel a lot better about it, because it's the absolute truth.
100%. I mean, paying taxes, I don't think paying taxes is patriotic. I think benefiting your country is patriotic, right? It's the same thing. Like look at in many states, like a 529 plan, a college savings plan for your children will offer dollar-to-dollar deductions up to a certain point, right? Because we want more functioning members of society. And not to say you can't be so if you don't go to college, but studies would show that those folks tend to be a little bit more successful. Now, I know many people that didn't go to college that have done very well in business and have made an unbelievable life for themselves. But studies would show that you're better off if you go to college. So how do you put more people in a position to be successful? That's another way that they're going to incentivize it. So how do you understand and use that framework and that tax code to your advantage? And not to mention, what does it look like when you talk about like we talk about liquidity and distribution? What does it look like when you go to do those things? Talking about short-term, long-term capital gains. Is it going to be taxed as income? Are there going to be RMDs, right? Required minimum distributions. And what is that going to do to the overall picture? Because sometimes, most times, what you see in the account as your balance isn't what it's going to be at the end of the day when you go to touch it. And you need to understand that, right?
Yeah.
100%.
That. So in order to work with you, is there a certain financial threshold? Is there, where can a client begin with you? Hey, is there a certain dollar amount that they need to be making?
It's a great question. I think everybody has their ideal client. Like for me, I love my folks that are President's Club producers because they're very high earners. But I take a lot of pride from in helping the next generation get there. Like I do a lot of work with newfound associates and saying, hey, listen, I'm getting this job going. It's as difficult as it is to begin with. How can I make some sound financial decisions? And a lot of that is just laying the foundation. It's the blocking and tackling of financial planning. So that way, when you get to that point of being a super high earner, your plan is built to sustain that. And I take a lot of pride in having those conversations. So for me, if you ask me, what does it take for someone to work with me? Be a decent human being. Like if you're someone I'm not going to mind hopping on a call with for 30 minutes to an hour, I'm happy to take that conversation.
Love that. Yeah, that's huge. Because, what are we doing here? We're helping other individuals. So in what I do, I find myself working with undergraduates at times, right? So undergraduates, one, typically don't have a lot of money or no money at all. Actually, they're in debt. And secondly, they're not in a position to go and apply for a job, right? So they're not my ideal candidate because I'm not helping them to win an interview to get a job. But there's definitely information that I can give them so that they can make the right decision. As long as I'm spending my time with someone who's actually going to really take it seriously and benefit from it. So I do give access to certain tools that I provide. And it seems like you're doing the same, which is great. Obviously, there's ideal people that I want to work with that have certain characteristics and traits that I can, work with to help them get an ideal great job. So, but no, that's good to know. I mean, if you're a top earner, top producer, and you have, money in the bank, and clearly that's your ideal candidate. So you would take calls from all sorts of individuals that are in the medical sales industry.
Sure, for sure.
Very good. I guess we can pause here for a second and see if there's anything else that you wanted me to touch on, or we can go back to, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for you, I mean, when you're having conversations with folks, like, the clients that are coming on for you, and you're talking about the career and you're talking about the process of getting a job, I mean, what are characteristics that you found of those folks that do it at a high level? Like the people that you come across and you're like, listen, I know this is going to be the career for you. Like, what are some things that stand out to you? Because I mean, having conversations with you, it's like I have got clients of my own that I think would benefit from having a conversation. Like, what are those folks that you're looking for?
Well, I look at it in different ways. First, just one, I want to help the individual. I could tell within 5-10 minutes or less if this is going to be a call where this person is going to be a really good client, or this person's not going to be a good client, but I can give them some guidance. I could give them some feedback, and try and point them in the right direction. Because one, I've been in the professional space for 15 years, let alone med sales, whether I want to give them sales guidance. Look, you're dead set on tech sales, go for tech sales. I completely understand. Keep this in mind, because these principles when interviewing are the same whether it's medical sales or tech sales. So I still want to guide them. But in terms of predicting success for an individual, to answer your question, one thing that is the same across the board for all sales reps that I've seen that are extremely successful are those that are driven and resilient. That's one aspect. And what does that mean? Someone that won't quit, that doesn't like to lose. And when they do lose, or they miss out, or something doesn't go right, they're planning their their comeback to how they're going to get that business back, or how they're going to win, or how they're going to hit quota no matter what. We're going to figure it out. It's I guess you can call it optimism, but it's not a blind optimism, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm going to manifest and use affirmations to get me through this. It's if they're an analytical person, they're going to sit and they're going to analyze the situation until they figure out the best way to go about it. If they're a bulldozer in a china shop, they're going to go back into that hospital and they're going to talk to as many people as necessary until they figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
They have a certain resilience. They know themselves, they know what they're good at, and they use it to their advantage to go and succeed. There's some other things too that that are necessary in order to be successful, and not all of them are innate. You can develop them. One that I'd like to talk about with my clients is equal business stature, which is a certain level of professionalism, of self-value and confidence. It comes out in your appearance, your disposition, the way you speak to someone. And really, I've learned that it comes with your self-value. So when you're speaking to someone, for example, if you're speaking to a doctor, especially as a young sales rep, it can be highly intimidating to tell a 45, 55-year-old, highly experienced, highly trained surgeon that, hey, what you're using right now, you should stop using that because this is better, right? And you're, I don't know, 24 years old, and you've just gone through 2 trainings from your company, and now you think you can sell it. But if you can develop the ability to manage those conversations in such a way where you do not come off as a beggar, or everyone has their own. There's no one way to do it. Every individual is different. So learn from yourself what you're good at, how you come across, and push with it. I've had sales reps. I've worked along with colleagues that do these amazing things, but I could never take what they do and apply it, because it just doesn't fit. If I said what that guy just said, it would come off. The customer would laugh me out of the room, or they would curse me out. But that person's disposition, their demeanor, it works for them to get things done. So there's certain things that are learned, and it's blended with who you are. So far I've answered, look, being driven and resilient. A certain level of professionalism, self-worth, where you can show equal business stature with your customer and client. Let's see. I'd like to cap it off with a third one that is consistent amongst the successful sales reps. This one is, I don't want to say it's harder to explain, but there's a look in the eye of the medical sales reps who have been in the industry for a while and will continue to be, and they're highly successful, and they're just a part of their community, a part of their hospital, a part of their territory and network, and they'll never leave it. And it's because they value being an asset and a resource to the doctors, the nurses, the healthcare providers in their area over selling a product. They understand not the necessity, they understand not just the impact, they understand, I want to get this word right. It's almost like the intensity, I can't think of the word, the seriousness in which this situation is for this one patient.
Sure.
And it's fun.
It's the magnitude is what it is.
Right. The magnitude and impact that this is going to have on this one person. And you would think someone who has seen thousands of surgeries or sold thousands of individual devices for each individual patient, and you tend to go numb to it, right? You would assume that. But to be able to maintain understanding the impact that each individual patient, sale, case, whatever it may be, that is primary. That is the utmost thing. I pitch, hey, medical sales, you'll make a lot of money, right? That is important because you want to take care of yourself, your family. That's why you do the work. But at the same time, I know that it also contradicts the idea of what's really making people successful. And it only really hits when you stand eye to eye with someone who cares primarily about the patient and making sure that they are doing as much as they can for the doctor and the nurse, to make sure that that goes well. And they'll sort out the sale and whatever it is after.
I think that's extremely well said. I mean, you have these folks that are um, high performers in anything that they do. Like they are self-aware and they are present, right? They're not afraid to challenge if the motive is proper and pure. And the folks that are,
Yeah.
that, again, correct me if I'm wrong, that get in there and are high performers, they don't sell a product, they sell a solution, right? So you identify an issue, you understand the common issue that the docs and the folks that you're talking to have, and you solve that. And
Yes.
that's where you have a ton of success, not only in this space, but in anything that you do. And people can tell right off the rip if you're genuine or if you're coming in there with commission breath. There's not a doubt in my mind.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can tell. And it's hard. It's hard for a young rep, right? And I deal with a lot of people entering into medical sales, or they're early on and looking to get into a better role. It's hard to explain to them, hey, look for solutions. Talk about solutions when it's like, hey, you have this one product or two products that you are now able to sell. Go out and make sure you sell a bunch of them. And you're like, how am I supposed to talk about solutions when I only know the bare minimum to go and sell these two products, right? It's a difficult thing, but there certainly are reps who figure it out, and it's like, what do you want to be known as? The Let's say this was a device in my hand, and it was called, XYZ. Do you want to be known as the XYZ rep, or do you want to be known as your first name, whatever it is, and that person is of value to us when they walk in the door and they're here. When you get to that point, the selling of the device comes without you even trying,
Mhm.
because you are the solution. You're providing the solution by being it. I'll see, I'll go find out, right? My career changed when I was taught and educated to focus on talking to your customers about what matters to them most. And at the time, it was building a surgeon's practice. I had no products that could help a surgeon grow their practice, but talking to them about it helped me understand that I could connect them with certain people. I can share with them best practices from all the other surgeons that I know. And suddenly, these surgeons were coming to me easily about, seeing me as a true resource. And selling my individual products was just something that I do, and they want me around, and of course they're going to use my products because I genuinely care about them. So then
Right.
they're naturally going to care about me.
100%. And where do you, for you in those situations, like where do you find those solutions? I mean, I'm assuming it's by just asking questions. Like I'm sure they're going to tell you everything that you want to know if you just listen and ask questions.
Yeah, no, and so once you have the mindset of doing that and you're having these conversations, you're learning from them. And it's just like anything else. You're just having these conversations and you learn. And hey, we just implemented this new software tool that makes our office practice better. And then you're not only having conversations with customers about it, but your colleagues, other people in the industry. And if you're embedded in what you're doing, you're starting to learn about different things. For example, I have a buddy up in New Jersey who he's gone from sales rep to the COO of an organization that helps surgeons' practices run more efficiently, but also make more money because they're able to negotiate lower prices, or lower prices on their products, or better payouts on procedures, along with being able to help them market and all these things. He's gone full bore, 100%, trying to fill as many gaps as possible in the surgeon practice. And when I say gaps, it's pain points. What are your pain points? What would make your practice better? And he's actually, with him and his business partner, have found, okay, then let's go. We're going to create a call center. We're going to have our own marketing team for your business. All these different things so that their lives are better.
I
So
think you're bang on.
just being within the industry, absorbing it. One thing I tell my clients is to, if you want to be in the industry, first off, LinkedIn is the place to be. Healthcare doesn't have a major platform that everybody flocks to that's specific to healthcare. Everyone is really on LinkedIn, and start following companies, doctors, and all sorts of people who are within the industry, and then let the algorithm go. And you'll slowly just start getting educated on what's going on within the industry, who's who, and use that as a massive networking tool. LinkedIn is like the biggest, what would you call it? What would you call it when everybody gets together and they have booths and they're presenting their products and
I mean, it's like a trade show, or a career fair.
yeah, it's a massive trade show networking event where everyone and anyone is there.
I mean, I could speak 100%. I could speak to that. I mean, the only outreach that I do out of direct referrals is done on LinkedIn, right? Because you know exactly who your target market is. You see somebody when you're sending them a message, and you can kind of find out what somebody's all about by checking out what's going on their LinkedIn feed. As far
Exactly.
from my point of view.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
which is great. I mean, the content that you've been posting has been excellent, right? So, like for example, J&J made a massive adjustment in their medtech side. You shared what you've learned and also came with your perspective, which allowed me to actually mention what you said in my dinner meeting last night with the healthcare people. So it's just sitting there and educating yourself, and suddenly, you become a resource to help bring people together or ideas together, opportunities, etc.
And I appreciate that. I mean, and that's what I try to do. I try to just put out good information. I mean, I do a biweekly newsletter that's just, what's going on in the med tech market and what are some planning nuggets for reps or folks that are affiliated, and just, trying to keep people up to speed on what's going on in their own ecosystem and also what it might mean for them. I think that's super important.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever there's shakeups, adjustments, major divisional changes in an organization, acquisitions, mergers, people get really frightened because they're like, we don't know what this means for us. And it could mean nothing and it could mean everything, and they just don't know. So the way you handled the J&J one was really interesting. It was like, so if you're with J&J MedTech, listen up. This is what this could mean for you. Suddenly the financial aspect becomes paramount in everyone's mind. It's like, okay, my money might switch up here, right? Because my territory might change. I might have to get another job, all these things.
Right.
What does that mean for me and my income? Do I have enough saved? All those things. So that perspective is really valued. And I would say a necessity in the space, right?
I appreciate that. And I try to bring just like kind of peace of mind, because people see that and they're like, what's happening? It's like, well, first of all, this isn't going to happen for 18 to 24 months. And this is what they're anticipating is going to happen. But if exactly what they're stating is going to happen, this is what it's going to mean for you. And for a lot of people, it's like, J&J is pretty notable for this, for dishing out RSUs. It's like, what do those restricted stock units look like if it gets to the point where like that's maturity and I'm now part of two different companies? Or what's going on with my employee stock purchase plan that I've been funding right now? Or what's going on with my 401k? Like, what is going on? My benefits, where are those going? Right? Do I even have a job? And so trying to answer some of those questions for folks is super valuable.
Yeah. Because I don't think it's what's happening here, but these restructurings could be the something bigger through a larger plan, whether it's a sell-off or an acquisition for that to be merged with something else. It could be on the table. There were some other assumptions at this healthcare dinner where people were saying that the profit margins on things like total joints and overall orthopedic cases are shrinking, and they don't want that to impact. Now, I don't know, this is not even assumption. This is just throwing this out there. J&J presented this based on how I read their this article. The article that they put out, it's like, look, the orthopedic space is massive, and they have such a large market share of it. It only makes sense that we have an offshoot so that it can focus on itself and not be disrupted by anyone else. The people at the table, two people at the table, had an alternate opinion as to why they were doing it. They were saying that the orthopedic space is actually shrinking in terms of margins, and they don't want that to affect the other business where the margins are better. So, which has all these other trickle down effects for everyone else. So we don't know exactly what the reasons for, which makes people hesitant. But when it comes down to it, is we're doing this to make sure that we get paid and we can take care of our families. So what's the impact on the financial side, and what could we be doing or planning for? So that's where the value is.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, there's two sides to this, right? That one in saying, hey, this is an orthopedic juggernaut. It's been a distraction. We're going to let it go do its thing. Others saying, hey, maybe we're trimming the fat here, right? And that's kind of the debate that's going on. And there's two parties. Some folks that are 1 foot in, 1 foot out on each party, but there's an argument to be made for each, right? Do you separate authority? Do you allow the split to go out and kind of do their own thing, or is it like, hey, we're just kind of shaking something off that might be dragging us down? So you nailed it.
Yeah. Excellent. Last question for you. In working with medical sales reps and not having been a medical sales rep, what is for someone who's not in medical sales and considering getting in, typically those who know about medical sales and are considering it, those individuals are looking at other sorts of sales or even finance, things like that. What is the type of individual that you're seeing get into medical sales, or the successful ones? What's your take on a medical sales rep, a successful one?
Yeah, I mean, I think successful medical sales reps are wildly competitive. And I don't think it's not a secret why there are so many athletes that do go into medical sales, because they've been trained to be competitive. They're very disciplined, detail oriented. Like, those folks tend to be very, very successful. And then you've got a variety of different types of sales reps that are in there. You've got folks that are wildly analytical, and then you've got folks that are just super charismatic, and they just want to, the doc just wants to get a beer with you after because you're that charismatic and they just enjoy having you around. I sense you're a little bit of both, right? You're probably a little bit of both, right? So there isn't a perfect mold for what it is. But like you said before, you need to understand your strengths and know what type of rep you're going to be based on the characteristics that you have and understanding your personality type. Going back to the point you made earlier about even Stryker doing the personality tests, right? They know what they think is a good rep and a good personality for what they're trying to do, right? You just have to understand your strengths and deploy those strengths properly. Folks that get into medical sales, I think they're go-getters, they're disciplined, they're very hungry, and they want high earning potential, and they're not afraid to put in the work to get there.
That's a really good point. I like that. Yeah, I would agree with that. But the outside assessment is a good one. I think you have a unique look to medical sales. Not, to know as many medical sales reps as you do, you're either in healthcare or a medical sales rep yourself. So it's a unique perspective that you have. I would say you're right. Sales reps, medical device sales reps, medical sales reps in general are highly competitive. And I knew I was competitive. Obviously, I played sports my whole life. But when you're faced with somebody saying, hey, everyone in medical sales has, they tend to have an ego, or they tend to be, and this is not false, or they tend to have a chip on their shoulder, or they're go-getters. Hey, it can be dog eat dog. In certain spaces, yes, and the most successful ones, yes. And it's like, am I that? I tell you, there's a chasm or some sort of hurdle or milestone that once you're done with school and all that, now you face the new world. It's kind of like a rediscovery of yourself. And so medical sales was my first real full-time job after school. And you start questioning who you are, because you did this, but you were a youth, you were a kid. Now you have to go be an adult. How do you fare in this space? And I have been put up, in situations where you're up against the wall and you're facing these, shit or get off the pot, either quit or figure it out sort of thing. And I learned, because of the intensity of medical sales, how I fare in those positions, in those situations.
The word that's coming to me, it's one word, it's grit. Like it's grit and resiliency. Like, and that's why folks that are successful in the career, they have those attributes because like you're going to be faced with adversity daily, right? And back to my point about athletes, maybe why they're successful is they know how to respond in those situations. Like you said, when you're
Right.
up against the wall and you feel like maybe you're down and you're out, I'm going to dig deep. I'm going to get through this. It's like the next man up mentality. You got to be where your feet are. And
Right.
folks that have the ability to be where their feet are, I found to be very successful from a financial perspective because those are the people that I talk to within
Yeah.
the field.
Huh. Yeah. And hot take, I'm not a strongly opinionated or antagonizing person, but there are certainly people in like the Reddit fields that talk about how medical sales, they speak negatively about medical sales from their brief experience, their brief stint, and where they feel that they were taken advantage, and all they do is hire young people, take advantage of them, chew them up, and spit them out. From their perspective and their story that they tell you, it's not inaccurate. But the reason that you were spit out is because you chose to quit, because you were not willing to you were not willing to accept what is. And what is this period in which you are the freshman on the team,
You're
right?
the
You're the
rookie.
rookie, right? You're the one who does have to carry the equipment. You're the one who has to be told what to do and follow, and recognize that you're not as important as so many other things. And you will soon be in that situation if you last and you figure it out long enough that it's nothing personal against you and no one's taking advantage of you. They are preparing you and putting this suit of armor that is only forged through difficult times for you to then lead a team or a territory for yourself where all that pressure's on you and you don't have the time to coddle a young sales rep, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your experience is true, it's valid, and that's why you're not in it, because unfortunately now I'm sure there's outliers where people were absolutely taken advantage of, right? But there is a point where you go, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you also have to create your own future. How am I going to handle this? Am I going to sit around and complain about it, or am I going to suck it up? Life isn't always fair, but I'm going to make sure that this works out for me, because there's a reason why my senior rep became a senior rep. I can do that too. So that's my hot take. It's just like, I think I speak for a lot of senior reps who have seen a lot of people come and go, and it's not that they're trying to take advantage of anyone. It's like, dude, you're the associate, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're getting free education from me. You're getting paid, and you can't even do anything yet. You don't even know how to speak the language of anatomy and sell anything yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're getting a free education. In fact, you're getting paid to be educated.
Mm-hmm.
So be quiet. Go run the trays to that hospital. I don't care if it's 5 a.m.
It's the same thing in my field too. I mean, you talk about financial services. If you look at you look that up on Reddit, you're going to do the same thing. It's like, oh, I jumped in the industry. They made me call on my friends to start off, and like that was super uncomfortable. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
going to see that everywhere. It's not all dissimilar to med device. Like you got to eat some crow. You have to earn experience, right? And you have to find a way to create your own luck. And you'll see this out there. People will say, in my field, like, why do I need an advisor? Well, if that's the advisor, the folks that we're talking about that aren't going to make it, they don't have the confidence, they're not going to do the extra work, maybe you're better served not having them as your advisor. But if you find the right person that's going to walk with you, put in the legwork, I mean, you're going to be way better off having that person on your side. It's the same thing in med device. There's high achievers and there's underachievers in every single field. How do you make sure
Right.
you're a high achiever instead of the alternative?
Yeah. Yeah. How are you going to respond to these tough situations, these uncomfortable, unwanted situations?
You're going to get kicked in the teeth a lot more than not, right? So how do you pick
Literally.
up your teeth, get back up, and go do it again?
Mm-hmm.
And the folks that do that, that's where you earn confidence. That's where you earn experience. And those are the moments you start to create your own luck.
Yeah.
Right? How do you compound quality efforts? And a lot of
Yeah.
it's forged in those moments of just pure shit.
Yeah. And that's what medical, and I only know medical sales, but with that, it's like you're put in these situations where things are just like, well, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely unfair, unwarranted. The system's broken. It's raining outside. Everything is wrong. But there's a patient there. Okay. So shut up. Right. And they're trying not to die right now. So shut up and help out.
Right.
That's what, forces you to harden yourself or take a hike. There's other people who want to get into medical sales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To bring it all the way back around, it's like, it takes grit. Like we talked about, it takes grit to be successful.
Yeah. There's a great book on it. But yeah, man, I do have to jump. Actually, we both have to jump. We have our,
I got to run.
This was great, man. I hope this was helpful to you. I thought this was a lot of great, not just content, but a great discussion for me, educational for me. Yeah, man, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, same on my end. Apologies for the technical difficulties I had here. Next time we'll go right to the phone before I get on the computer.
You're
but
good.
Yeah, it was great chat, man. I definitely appreciated it.
Thanks for watching. I hope that gave you some real insight. And if you're serious about getting into medical sales or someone you know, send them to me, medsalesblueprint.com. I have tons of resources, tons of content that help people on their way to get into medical sales fast. Phenomenal industry, you know it. People need help getting in, and that's what I'm here for.